Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to avoid lazy negativity, we have decided to make this episode a little bit of a drinking game.
Just a little bit.
Anytime you hear us say anything negative about anything, the movie, each other, you're going to hear this sound. And we're going to take, and we hope you drink along with us.
So,
Cheers.
pour yourselves a glass, and I don't know what to say about this one.
Pre-show shot to get us started here. Pre-show shot. John is ahead of us here.
Yeah, he went off. He went early.
He's ready to get into this. Okay,
Oh,
so
man.
we are talking about Memories of Murder today. This is going to be the first. Well, it's the first part of this series that after it's been named. Dave, remind me one more time what it's called.
It's called What Else Have They Done?
What else have they done? Yes. Now,
What else have they done?
Because you know what they've done.
we know
But
what they've
else
done.
have they done?
Yeah. So if I were to think Bong Joon Ho, I would probably think, obviously Parasite. I would think Snowpiercer. Maybe I'd go all the way back to The Host or Okja. But you're right. I didn't think about this one. And then John recommended this. John, why did you recommend this movie?
I have wanted to watch this movie for a long time. I'm not going to lie, and I'll talk about it a little bit more when we're in the show. But at one random time last year, a cinematography professor kept using shots from this as examples of how to compose multiple people in single frames and have like the blocking the way it, because we'll talk about how passionate Bong Joon Ho is about storyboarding, and this just kept being used as an example by this one professor, and it just was a really thorn in my
Literally the
side for a
only
while. I
movie
was like,
you've
I gotta
seen.
watch it.
Guys, we're going back to
Like-
film school today.
You know
Go
what?
back
If
to
this
film
was
school.
the only movie you've seen, you'd probably still be in good shoes. But yeah. I also just heard, just like we're talking about now, when he really exploded with Parasite, and I wasn't as much of a fan of Snowpiercer, but Parasite I thought was really brilliant. Everybody kept talking about this one. I just heard people saying, "Oh, you got to watch Memories of Murder," and I like dark, serious, dramatic stuff. So this was right up my alley. I loved it.
Nice. All right. So if you're new to the show, we usually try to keep it spoiler free, although because this movie's been around forever, maybe we just won't jump to the end and give it all away. But
you
I'm
could.
just well, anyway, so that, if we were to be doing a new movie, we try to keep it spoiler free for a couple minutes so we can give you our recommendations, what we think, what we feel having seen the movie, rather than give you like a critic's take or whatever. And of course, we drink when we say something negative. So obviously, if we think something negative, we can say something negative. We just have to drink for it, and hopefully that keeps us, having some fun, shooting the shit a little bit. But before we get into all of this stuff for this movie, John, can you please shout out our sponsors?
We had a beer sponsor. I think we still have a beer sponsor.
He's around.
His name is
Yeah.
Carlos Barroso. He is alive. See Barroso.beer. Get that handle from our show notes. Follow him on Instagram to get all the beer making fun and news. And we have a musician, an artist in residence, Dasein, Dasein, providing the music on this episode and every single episode, available on all music platforms. Go get it. Go download it. Like
he's
it.
at
Share
my
it.
house.
Follow.
He's at my house this week. Can one of you guys take him back?
Oh,
Oh my god. Dasein, and I was right last week. Dasein was donating all of the profits, all of the proceeds, all of the profits, whatever, from his merch to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I knew it was something good. Dasein.
that's awesome. I bought a
Dasein's the
t-shirt.
shit.
You guys should buy a t-shirt or whatever the fuck.
Is he
A
still going to
print.
donate to? Is he still going to donate to St. Jude's if I buy a T-shirt
He
now?
better. I could have
Should we
just
reach out to him?
passed him a 20. I should have just given him a 20, but decided to get the shirt.
All right,
Yeah,
so we
there's some
always are.
prints. It's pretty cool.
Well,
Keep going.
You know what?
keep going.
Even though this is part of our new series, which I should say too, it's these movies haven't been in our series, but we also did like The Devil's Backbone by Guillermo del Toro. We did Parasite, by the way. We talked about that if you want to get into it. But there are other movies. If you go back into our catalog during COVID, we did some crazy shit. So you probably will see. There's probably movies
During
that are like
COVID,
other
everyone
great
did some
director
crazy
movies.
shit.
I mean, we saw some things that most movie podcasts were not talking about. We decided we were like, well, you know what? It's February in 2021. Let's do this. Okay, so I would recommend going through our feed. Dave set up our link tree, so we're very easy to contact. We are so readily available for your feedback, positive or negative. The negative feedback tends to be longer, so we can tell right away. But
by about a page.
Jeff has COVID right now, so he is super available. You hit us up on the socials. He's ready to rock.
He might
He's
even
sitting there in his
day
room
5.
waiting for you to message him. Come on, let's get on it.
Tomorrow's my day 5. One more day. Yeah, Dave will still answer.
Day 5,
but hey,
dude, you're so close.
okay. We're gonna do our gripes of the week. So we always try to do this again to try to get us drinking a little bit off at the top. Air it out. We have 1 minute, so we don't turn this episode into a 3-hour just what we want to talk about shit fest. So 1 minute gripes. Do either of you have gripes? Now I'm gonna tell you right now. I have a big gripe and I have a small gripe. So I think the big gripe I would save for our Great Escape episode, which we're gonna record after this when we're already a little drunk. Do you guys? Where are you at with your gripes right now?
I don't have a gripe.
You don't have any gripes.
Nope.
I think this segment got started so that you can gripe about stuff, but I look forward to it every week. Honestly, I'm always so excited to hear what you're going to rant about. So just go for it, and I'll tail on and complain about something if I agree with it. How about
Okay,
that?
I'm going to go with the small gripe.
All right, I'll start.
If you want the big gripe, you have to listen to our Great Escape episode, which is dropping right around the same time as this.
I will
Are you
start
ready?
the timer.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, go.
Guys, close your fucking doors in your movies and your TV shows. Close the door. I'm so sick of it. I can't even tell you how sick of it. When I see two people leave and there's no door closed, I remember that I'm watching a movie and I'm not in the world that you want me to be in anymore. I was watching Under the Banner of Heaven, which overall I recommend. I'll get to it at the end of this segment. And these two actually one cop goes up the mountains to like the mountain police person, and they both leave. The camera's inside, and they just leave, and they don't close the door. And then they cut to commercial, which is even more shitty because all they had to do was close the door and cut to commercial right when they closed the door. But they didn't. They just left. I saw them get in their car, and then it cut with the door fucking wide open. There's murderers on the loose, people. Close the fucking door.
Dude,
you beat the
you
timer,
and my mom, dude.
But
my mom talks about that all the time, dude. She always brings things like that up to me in movies, but that is one that she always goes to.
dude,
It's true.
I have a list of
especially if
things that piss me off.
That kind of crap. It is weird how that has found its way into acceptable like film language. Like nobody questions it. It happens all the time.
I get when there's a punch or a stab, I get the cutaway so you can get the result. So that way, you know, it doesn't look like the 80s fake kind of fighting. Or even the Godfather fight is the only scene in that movie that didn't age well, is the fucking Sonny fight in the street where he's missing
just
the
that
guy
one
like
hit.
7
just
feet.
that really one punch.
Even the kicks, it looks like they're doing a dance together. It looks like they're doing like a figure skating lift. But the only time this is acceptable is the only time. I know the gripe's over, but the only time this is acceptable is when the cops are doing a raid on the house and they barge through the door and the camera follows the cop in. That's the only way that it's right. This happens all the time where people come in, they're like, hey, come in my house. And it's like, am I on MTV Cribs right now? Like, why? Like, are we just going to acknowledge the camera that just came through the door and that's why you couldn't close the door? Just close it. You got to figure it out. You guys, theater people, we have to figure this shit out. Movie people, it's time for you guys to figure shit out. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, now I definitely went over. I'll give one more drink for that. Okay.
Dave and I have our assignment moving forward. I'm going to close every door in every movie I ever make.
Door.
I promise you.
You'll see
doors.
doors.
Farce.
There'll be doors closed and dialogue happens on the other side of the door, and you don't even see it because the door's closed.
That might be my next short film. Is just
From the other room.
wonderful.
Oh my
just
God,
a bunch of doors closing.
That's so funny. It's just constantly directing scenes where you have to close doors and you're like, the scene's ruined. Actually, this segment started because Dave kept talking about his theater going experiences and like the guys next to him at movies that were ruining it. So I was like, let's just do this now. It was always his first takeaway from the movie. Dave would be like, I saw Sonic 2 and I really liked it, but the guy next to me, and then he spent a minute talking about the guy next to him and not the movie. But thank you for, are you guys ready to talk about this movie?
Yeah.
Sure, dude.
Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I had a good day.
Okay, have either of you seen...
You were sick last week. Are you feeling better?
Me?
You had a tooth problem, right? Didn't you have?
That's still there because you can't get a fucking dentist in America for a week. So it turns out mine was on holidays.
My dad's retired, or else I would have thrown you down.
So I'm actually going tomorrow. So.
Oh my God! I hope your dentist hums to you like Dr. Say.
Yeah. Only the light, only the light station.
Well, I went to my university dentist. I'm going to only say the name of the university because Columbia University's got to get your shit together. Columbia University sounds like a great school. I went to the dentist. I showed up. I got a cleaning, and then they said, you have to come back. There's no dentist. And I said, I'm not coming back. I'm just going to take, and I'm not paying. I'm going to take the free cleaning. I'm going to go. I'm not paying the copay.
Hold on. You went to the dental school at Columbia. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they have like an actual dental practice there.
Well, I mean,
the Columbia students come in as residents, but they have actual dentists.
Great. Now the students have learned to get the money up front.
It should, because I left. I was like, there's no way I'm paying for this. And I didn't see a dentist. So I know I got the cleaning.
You didn't trust one of the students to clean it?
There was nobody I could see. There's no student. No. I got the cleaning.
Weird, dude.
I got the cleaning. And they took x-rays. And they took x-rays. So I have no idea if they were like, you have to come back. And I was like, I really don't want to come back.
You need the attending dentist to give you that final.
The story's not over. I shit you not. I called the next semester to go because I really need to see the x-rays. So I was like, if I get billed, whatever, I need another cleaning. And I need to see what happened to those x-rays. And I called and the number was discontinued. I'm not kidding. Dude, I'm not kidding. I didn't go to the dentist this past semester.
They've set me up for an x-ray tomorrow as well. So that's one more thing they can use to identify them in this country. I'm pretty sure they've got every single biometric. Someone's going to measure my dick and then they've got the complete
Dave,
set.
what do you think they're going to find?
Dave's going to be identified by cock. Actually, yeah. What are they going to find? Actually, this segues kind of into a murder mystery where we're looking for DNA evidence in the rain here. Should we segue?
Oh, nice segue.
Sure.
Yeah.
People, we're talking about Memories of a Murder. This is Bong Joon Ho's second feature film. This was from 2003 when Bong Joon Ho was just 34 years old. 34 years old.
It's just Memories of Murder. I kept calling it Memories of a Murder too, but I think it's just Memories of Murder.
It is Memories of Murder. I got it right the first time. I'll buzz myself. I'm ashamed. I
fucked it up too. Siri didn't know what I was searching last night. I was like, come on, you know what I'm talking about.
I just typed in, this is on Hulu, by the way. I typed in murder on Hulu and I got Murders in the Bill. There's a lot of murder things that pop up when you just type in murder.
That's an obtuse search right there.
Type in murder and you get like 50 things and you're on a watch list.
Yeah. Well, okay. Hold on. I'll get to it in a second. But anyway, have either of you seen this movie before? John, you hadn't. Dave?
Nope. I didn't even know about this movie until.
Besides Parasite, Snowpiercer, and maybe Okja, did any of you see Okja? Have any of you seen any of his other movies other than those three, which I would say are the most like they premiered in Okja was right on Netflix right when it came out. I think Snowpiercer probably that's definitely streaming, and now it's a series.
Yeah, Snowpiercer I saw.
Yeah.
But have you seen any other?
I saw it not knowing he directed it.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure I saw Okja first. That was the first thing I'd ever seen by him. And I don't really like that movie nearly as much as his other movies. It's still, you can tell you're in the hands of a very, very competent, masterful filmmaker. But I just didn't respond to that story and the humor nearly as much as I've responded to his more dramatic, dark humor kind of stuff. And I just, I'm so happy that I kind of have gotten to these as well. I still need to see Mother. We can maybe talk about that one in the future on this segment. It's supposed to be really good, very dramatic. And I haven't seen The Host. I've never seen The Host, so I want to watch that one too.
The Host could be on our list. Guys, reach out. Please contact Dave if you think that we should do The Host. Wait, Mother, he has a movie. Oh yeah, 2009. No shit.
Wow.
Yeah. Also a really intense, dramatic story about a mother trying to find the man who like accused his son or framed her son for murder or something like that. It's supposed to be really good.
I thought you were talking about the Darren Aronofsky. I thought you were talking about the Darren Aronofsky movie that I.
There's so many mothers. I was looking at all the movies called Mother last night. There's so many.
Guys, I'm gonna tease you right now. This is sort of relevant to my gripes of the next episode that I'm gonna give you.
Ooh.
Yeah. You still working on your whiskey?
Yeah, I didn't have as many beers as I thought, so it's gonna be a whiskey night for me.
Oh dear.
I also don't want to have to pee in the middle of the night. Okay, so we're talking about Memories of Murder. Bong Joon Ho, 34 years old, in Korea, and I didn't know this when I started watching this, so I almost feel bad saying it off the bat to anybody who's listening. Up until this point, this is based on a true story.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Same, dude. I had no idea until I read about it afterwards. Actually, somebody mentioned to me at school today. I was just talking about it, and somebody was like, "Isn't that fucking crazy?" And they we'll talk about it in a moment. And so I looked it up, and I go home. Holy shit, fucking crazy!
Yeah.
Well, it was crazy because these are the true story about the Hwaseong Serial Murders. By the way, if we mispronounce anything, I'm so sorry. I blame
Yeah,
Western.
of course.
I
But you know what?
I really, really wish I could pronounce
We
this
have
correctly.
absolutely got to hashtag South Korea for this because I want people to talk to us. I want to learn more about your films and tell us how to pronounce these places and these names
too,
correctly
yeah.
so we can show the respect. Your film scene is
great.
fucking awesome right now, dude. Fucking great.
The music scene's good. I know it's not just BTS and Blackpink. I know there's more stuff out there. Anyway, so these are the murders from 1986 to 1991. They're rape murders, typically attractive women in their 20s who were walking alone at night in the rain, probably specific to that climate, so that it's hard to track evidence. It was hard to get any samples. Also, apparently in the 80s, South Korean and probably American, but South Korean police not well equipped to handle a lot of murders.
No.
I couldn't believe that was the police. There were a lot of times where I was like, are they in the police station right now? It didn't even look like a police station.
This was like this was a rural province too. Like they weren't the city that was.
Yeah, he made more money selling green juices than he did working as a detective.
Occasionally, they reminded those two reminded me of the Keystone Cops, the way they were carrying on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Also, people, get your tetanus shots. We should say that right now while we're talking about your healthcare. Please get your tetanus shots. That's me. Okay. So I started this movie. That's what it's about. It's about the detective, and then a detective comes in from Seoul when he starts hearing that when it becomes a pattern, when there's 2, maybe 3, then you have basically 2 detectives leading this team of detectives / basically buffoons who are, and this is apparently a true story, really violent, and we see it from their perspective. So to us, it almost seems justified. It seems very Elliot Stabler, emotional cop just trying to get results, and they have a longer rope. You almost can see I think all of us can imagine a lot of American cops who would take a lot of rope and start slapping some people across the head and tying them up and hanging them upside down if they could get a confession out of them. They were sort of doing shit like that, and we see it from their perspective. So I was sitting there and I was like, "Whoa, this movie's crazy," but I didn't know it was true. I didn't know it was based on a true story. So I was like, it was weird that I was kind of rooting for these people, even though they were being very inappropriate by certainly contemporary standards. Anyway, I digress. That's what this story is about. Is there any other preamble I want to say?
No, we've got 17 minutes of it already.
Okay, cool. You guys go ahead. What were your initial takeaways of seeing this film?
Dave's tooth is killing him, dude. Can't do it.
Actually, it's not. I got in there and wiggled it around and it stopped hurting.
Oh, Dave, don't touch it.
No, I had to. It was pushing on the nerve. So like the piece had splintered. It was actually like sticking into the nerve. So I just got in there and levered the little bastard out, and it's fine now. It doesn't hurt at all.
You pulled half of it out?
No, I didn't pull it out. I just put it back where it was supposed to be.
Wow. God
Sometimes you just got to fix yourself,
Sure. Yeah, sure. Dan and we just fucking take our teeth, fucking put them back where they're supposed to be. Sometimes they get out of place, and we got to just fucking
get back there, you little bastard. There you go.
That's for using an Australian on a native speaker. I guess the last thing I should say is, wait, this stars the lead of Parasite, who's the lead of all of Bong Joon Ho's movies, Kang-ho.
This is the first time that they work together. So I just wanted to point that out before we go too deep. But yeah, let's get past and let's start talking about some spoilers, because ultimately I loved it. Like I already said, Dave, did you love it too?
I actually did, yeah. At first I was like, this is a real slow burn, and these guys are idiots, and then because they do spend a fair bit of time making these guys look like fools, and they stage a press conference where they're supposed to do a reenactment, and they've got someone dressed up as the woman, and it just all goes horribly wrong. It all falls apart. And then, the other detective comes in and it starts to get a bit better. And that's when I started to find it really interesting, because it was like, all right, they're on the trail now. And yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like Korean storytelling is really good. And also,
what we've seen,
I just want to put it on record. I don't think there's a Korean cinematographer out there who doesn't perfectly understand lighting. I've never seen one.
Wait, how so? Because I thought so too, and I love that all the different crime scenes were similar but different. There was yellow,
the color
green,
palette,
darker green.
the color palette, that they used. It was faded blues and browns, but the killer was tracking red and stuff like that. Because he always took girls who were wearing red.
Yeah,
and it was just those little faded things that just added to the mood of the shot. And yeah, it really was a good film. Very well made. Very, very well made.
Yeah. I'm going to echo it and talk about it a lot throughout the episode, but there was a very mature aesthetic to all of the design.
Yeah.
All of it felt like it took itself seriously. And somehow within that, as he does in all of his movies, there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of like weird, dark humor that finds its way out in the performances.
Very good at that social satire.
Yeah, man. It is. I watched a couple interviews.
I'm sure there's at least.
About this.
I'm sure there's a heap of jokes that we missed, not knowing like South Korean culture as well. So
of course, and we don't fucking we're reading a translation. Like they were talking over each other a lot. So
yeah.
But yeah, let's move into the next section.
Jeff, what do you think?
On.
I liked it a lot. It was great. Yeah, it was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah,
and it was weird for me because I started out like hot, like for an hour. I was like, this is so fucking fun. This is fun. Yeah. And then like it just, the longer it went on and the more rapes and murders that just were going unsolved, it was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It started to turn into like the third act of Wolf of Wall Street where you're like, shit, the good feeling's gone now. Like,
which is,
all right, go
ahead.
What?
It's so cool. It's so cool that you made that observation because he is obsessed with Scorsese. He refers to him a lot. He's obsessed with Hitchcock and he's obsessed with Martin Scorsese. And I think you can see that in a lot of his stuff. You're having fun. He's really good at doing that thing that a lot of really compelling, entertaining, R-rated filmmakers do. Where like they'll get you in, you'll have some fun, maybe some violence, some inappropriate humor. They're handling adult subject matter with some levity. And then before you know it, at the end of the movie, you're like watching art. And whatever the last moments are, you're just like, oh my God.
Inversely, this is one of Tarantino's favorites, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, this was the first one to appear on Tarantino's list. And I remember, because I used to watch these lists, I used to be that loser that was like, whatever Quentin says, like, that must be right. He knows more about movies than anybody. And this one and then The Host were both on his like year-end lists. And also, I think they're like he did like the best of the decades. And they might have both been like in his top 20 of the decades. But yeah,
you know what? Let me go ahead. I wanted to read this out really quickly, actually. IndieWire. Just to give you an example, they did, 21st century best crime films. And I was just looking around in some different lists, and this is in the top 5. They got Departed at number 5. This is number 4. Then 25th Hour, No Country, and Zodiac. And we'll talk about Zodiac a little bit later because these movies are like the American and the South Korean version. They're so similar.
Just
in so many ways.
That is true.
Unsolvable crimes, crimes.
But also aesthetically, like there's a weird fear and an aesthetic that remind me of each other. It's not just the fact that they ended up, because I didn't know this was going to be unsolved. Again, I didn't know this was a true story.
Probably should turn the spoiler alert on.
But
it is an old, but it's from 2003. I'm like, we're safe for spoilers, but
I think you're right.
For everyone, I'll put this thing up so that anyone skipping through YouTube knows we're talking about it now.
Can I introduce? Yeah, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say one more thing, just to talk about the setup and how the feeling, like, the segue, and this is very Scorsese, I guess, and a lot of it does come down to the writing, and it has to be captured really well. But there's a scene early on in the movie where they're at the police station, and our main guy, Kang-ho, the main detective's Parasite, is shooting the shit with the other guy, and they're looking at 2 guys filling out the report, and they're like, one of the guys is the rapist and one of them is the witness, and you can see these 2 guys in the police station, and they goes, which one's the rapist? And they don't know, they don't know who it is. And there's this whole idea of like, can you tell, right? So you have the main character who thinks he can look somebody in the eye and know the truth immediately. But you also, very immediately after that, he beats the shit out of the new detective who's come from Seoul. And he's like, how come you don't have a good eye for who's a criminal, basically, and who's a detective? How did you not know that I wasn't a criminal? And it sort of sets up this idea of, we never know. We don't know who the criminal and the good guy is. We don't know this. And I thought that was like good symmetry, like good writing. I didn't realize how pervasive that was going to be through the entire film, where it was like, oh my God, it's like we all could be the rapist. You know what I mean? I really feel like they did a really good job laying that on.
I thought that was the way they were going to go when they everybody turned up at the crime scene, and he would like, the main guy was at the crime scene, and then the other 2 buffoons were in the bushes, like at the crime scene. And then I was like, these fucking idiots are going to start thinking he's the rapist. And that's the way I thought it was going to go. But then, of course, it went a completely different way, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a minute there, I was like, oh, they're going to go down this path where they suspect. And for a minute there, I was like, well, is he? Jeff,
you're totally right about the... we talk a lot when we're like writing screenplays about how do you, not in an indicative way, but how do you get your theme across on every page, in every scene, in every shot? How is there a way to try to promote these ideas cinematically? That one is such a perfect example. It is handled so maturely. It's introduced in a way that's, it's a little bit of a bait kind of thing. You're like, oh, is this his gimmick? And it's interesting. They set it up with that scene you described. Guys, it doesn't let go. And did you connect the dots that what is the last frame of this movie? He looks at us.
Yeah.
Right? He finally realizes that wonderful, it builds to this thing that we'll probably talk about later, but this theme stays there throughout the entire way visually. And you think it has different moments where, especially in the climax at the very end, where you think it's the very end, where you think they have done something and maybe have caught somebody who might be the killer. And you're like, that's it. That's the final climax of this cinematic language. And it worked. And then the final fucking moment of that film, he just fucking looks right at you. And it's so terrifying. And that's what a difficult thing to do, to get somebody to look down the can.
Yeah. Have you read the interview where he explains what that was?
I just saw the Wikipedia.
Okay, because basically he was assuming that because it was unsolved, the actual killer from the true story would watch the movie, and he was actually looking directly at the killer. And that guy did actually watch the movie. Since we're going to
talk about it, this kid, he's there revisiting, this old detective who's not a detective anymore is revisiting the original murder site, the first one. And this little girl says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm just coming here." She says, "Oh, that's so strange. A guy was just here a couple of weeks ago or months ago doing the same thing. And he looked very plain." He's like, "Describe him." He says, "I don't know. He looks very ordinary." And then he freaks out, and then he looks right at the camera, and we fade. The idea of using that theme visually from the beginning to the end, it ends up having just such a much larger commentary on the problems that they were going through with their criminal justice system. So I heard Bong Joon Ho in a couple different interviews talk about how he was trying to kind of use this story to kind of comment on the chaos of the government and small governments, especially in the 80s in South Korea. And he thought that there was commentary on what was happening in the world in general, just the 80s, just this massive chaos of what was happening economically all over the world, these booms and busts. But I thought it was kind of, he really captured it, right? So some of the hyperbolic, way too far antics that these detectives were going through with the violence and the screaming, yelling. And I don't even know if that was supposed to be totally grounded in realism, but it definitely captured this tone of something that was almost like, it was hard to believe almost. Like if it wasn't dealing with such serious subject matter, I don't know if I would have bought it.
I do know though.
Did you get that feeling at all?
I've seen now,
Totally,
like
100%.
in a lot of the Korean stuff that we've watched, like they don't fuck around with character. When you're an idiot, it's clear you're an idiot. And like when you're smart, it's clear you're smart. So they have these very definitive lines. And like when you're an idiot, you're a complete fucking idiot. So they telegraph the fact that these guys are buffoons. They're violent. They're incompetent police, possibly corrupt. And they really telegraph it to an extreme.
But I would second that too, is that nobody's brilliant. Because like even our main guy, like he refuses to think that not that he's brilliant, but nobody's going to believe they're going to have flaws, and you're going to see them in this
except
movie.
the one woman in the police barracks who almost solves the case twice.
Yeah, and they're just like talking over her, which the whole thing is about sex crimes and sex politics, gender crimes, and the one female cop that they basically pawn out to the killer in a red skirt. She's actually the one that first of all makes that link. Second of all, follows up on it multiple times. Oh my god, it was great. Also, I need to see character. I'm not going to talk about the Rings of Power and House of Dragons right now. I'm going to save it for the end. But man, what the fuck is happening to these shows? I'm not a fan right now, and I get to see these characters. These places, they're eating together a lot. They're complaining about the way their noodles are. I get the life of this scene, of this story. I really am immersed in it. It becomes an immersive experience.
That style of filmmaking, those moments really do serve the process well, because like it
barfs at dinner and then keeps eating. What the fuck?
It grounds the characters. Like it grounds the characters.
It just throws up at the table.
It's ridiculous. Like
so that scene. That scene right there is a perfect example of like the staging thing I was talking about. That whole scene is done in one shot.
Yeah.
And these guys are drunk around a table. they're talking to each other. Somebody comes from the back. The chief sits up at one point, barfs. The focus shifts to him. One of them steps out of the way. And
Yeah,
I
but
heard
it's always
Bong
just
Joon
a
Ho
focus
I've heard
shift.
him
There's no camera move. Like the camera's just
exactly.
static, and
And
it's
not
one
even,
giant
it's not
fucking
even
take.
necessarily like it's not even necessarily. Sometimes it is literally focal shifts with a lens, but a lot of times he's sitting with a wide enough focus,
Yeah.
a wide enough lens, so that you really can just kind of look wherever you want. So that he does. I heard him talk on multiple interviews about how he's kind of this amalgam. Jeff, you would like this one. Scott Feinberg interviewed him at the TIFF maybe a few years ago.
Oh yeah, let's do it. That's weird.
And I've heard him talk multiple times, Bong Joon Ho, through his translator, about how he's obsessed with storyboarding. So he's a meticulous designer, which is why he doesn't do coverage. He doesn't like getting extra things. He likes everything with one intentional shot. And I think that's, that right there is one way to measure certain directors from other directors. I really feel like that is, when you can design that says something. But he's also this enigma because he really wants, within that frame, within those parameters of movement, he wants his actors to feel free to improvise if they want. He wants to have really controlled and designed, parameters for actors to live in. He wants it to feel like it is character driven. He doesn't want it to feel like you have to do it this way and say it this way.
Can you imagine
he casts in such a way
Can you imagine how many marks are on the floor?
These guys bring so much life to it.
Like how many marks must be on that floor? It's like you can do what you want, but don't go outside these tape. And there's just fucking tape everywhere.
So exactly. When he's saying those, I keep trying to imagine myself like, what does that mean as the actor when you're sitting there? Like, literally, you're going to be like, you basically have, here's the edge of frame. Here's as far as you can go. There's their other side. If you decide to jump across the table, this is their edge of frame. And you can do anything you want within that.
Yeah.
And
here's
honestly,
your playground.
You see exactly every single frame of this, every fucking frame. I kept rewinding it too. There is undirected life in that. The characters are just so fucking alive. The camera seems like it has tons of intention behind it, but it never feels controlled.
No,
it doesn't. It doesn't feel, well, it does feel controlled, but it never feels smothered. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so much, Jeff, just to go with what we're talking about just a hair, and I don't want to open up because we'll talk about those shows at the end because I think we're all watching these things, but there's an irony that is happening right now in scripted television, in my mind, where these are character-driven stories. They're serial style. We are following these gigantic arcs of characters that we fall in love with over a long period of time, seasons and seasons. And yet a lot of the shows, there is a tendency for them to be over-controlled, over-designed to a point where you kind of feel like, I don't know what kind of acting is happening. Like the acting doesn't feel like it is as free in a lot of these, some of these movies that have this kind of element. These influences from Scorsese and certain new wave directors that this guy grew up watching. There is something that is just really, really, really unique and it's kind of hard to watch this kind of work in films when you're talking about movies and not realize why everybody recognizes him for being such a master so quickly. He seems to have found the balance of control and everything that a director can do to cultivate and manipulate a wonderful environment so that actors and a DP and everybody can just come to life. It's so alive, dude.
Well, and the irony to that is we just, gush the fuck out of this guy. Well, you know what? The irony, back to irony. I don't know if irony is the right word, but we just had the Emmys last week. This is the 2021 to 2022 whatever, Emmys, 2022. But in 2021, shows won a lot of the awards. I thought that fucking Severance was going to win a lot of shit that came out this year. I thought it was great. But no, it's Mare of Easttown, White Lotus, Succession, which came out technically in this year, but sort of at the beginning of the year. Ozark came back. But these shows are exactly what you're talking about. Now, Succession and Ozark are obviously heavily scripted. They're all heavily scripted, but there's life in it. You watch Mare of Easttown, you know that if Kate Winslet and and Gene Smart and all these people that are working, you know that if they have an opinion that it gets heard and they get to do some shit and even Squid Game, I feel like the main actors, I feel like they were really a part of sculpting those scenes. So it's weird when you get these, what you're saying, these overproduced shows. Then obviously that suffers. But back to this, it's very meticulous too. So that's the balance. And that's the Scorsese conundrum, right? Is that he's so meticulous. He pours his soul into these things and it's all done ahead of time. He's literally storyboarding things that when he's reading the script, he's like writing pictures in of how he would shoot it. The heiress, or no, not the heiress, not the heiress. Age of Innocence famously had all of these like swirling circle, like it almost looked like like something that a mathematician would write all over his script from like his first read, not even with production designers, because he was already like seeing it come to life, and just like it was almost like people that were possessed, like writing all over like a piece of paper. And so with this, how do you do that where you can keep it free and loose for the actors, but you also have it meticulous?
You know, it'd be great.
I think he fucking
if
nailed
we
it.
find out down the track that like he's literally just scribbling curves on his thing. He's like, let's see what fucking film students make of this. He's been fucking with you for years.
You're right, dude. He has said, I've heard him say a couple times now, and I'm sure it's a stock answer at this point. He gets asked these things all the time. But I've heard Paul Thomas Anderson say the exact same sentence. How do you direct on set? What do you say to actors? And both of them have said as little as possible. Honestly, like we should have already had those conversations a long time ago. If I don't feel like I have the right actor in the role, and we haven't talked about what we're going for with intention, get out of their way. Let them surprise you. Let them do something that is not in your head for the perfect idea. And when you're working with actors like Kang-ho, I mean, you just got to let them live. Just do a couple more takes, and you're going to have your options.
He is. I mean, oh my God, he is just a fucking ball of energy every time. But also, dude, that includes the intimate moments, like what you're saying, like the tetanus shot thing. I was like, what's going on with the tetanus shot? Is this? I was like, as soon as that started happening, I was like, we're not catching this killer, right? But they're not going to do the thing where it's like the friend, because again, I didn't know this was a real story. I was like, what the hell? Like, why are we doing these asides? Why is he taking his friend to his amputation? Like, this whole thing was like, I was like, what is going on? But he was so alive. Oh my God, he was so alive. I feel like I was going to say something else about that, but it doesn't matter. I don't know.
There were so many. No, I'm glad you pointed that out, though. There were so many asides. There's no other way to say it. Like there were moments that really weren't super important to the overall story moving forward, but he told you they were important cinematically. There was that one moment towards the end, either right before, it's when he says, "Let me see your leg," and they're standing by the car. They were just going to get in a car and drive away. He could have said, yeah, the leg's still bothering me. And we would have known, that leg's going to cause a problem. But they came in tight for these weird close-ups. They were strangely framed and really gave him a moment to like have this tiny little arc over the next like 6 minutes where he has to like take his friend to have this come. I think that ended up being a really wonderful metaphor for them losing their footing and starting to like really feel like this is taking,
it was also
taking stuff from us.
A little bit of karmic justice as well, because that one cop got confessions out of people by kicking them
with that fucking foot. Yeah.
Right. Oh my God. Wait, how fucking awesome were those kicks? Wait, oh my God, out of nowhere, he just like flips and kicks him. I was like, holy
when
shit.
He jumps across the table and hits that one dude. I mean, I rewound that like 3 times. That was hilarious and awful and dramatic.
Life.
It was... You're fucking so lying, cool. And he just like the entire body is horizontal. He's coming.
I love how, and this is great with all the gang movies like Departed and that kind of stuff, where like one fight, like one person throws a punch and now everybody's in a fight. Like that happens in this movie. Like one guy throws a bottle through a TV screen, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait, is the killer in the room? Why are 20 people fighting all of a sudden? And was that little TV with the little dial remotes? Was that like the local sports bar? The whole thing was like so crazy to me. The whole thing, dude. I'm still like having out of body experiences, thinking about like the victims being tied. I'm like being transported out of my fucking body, like thinking about this. Dude, movie.
I'm so glad you guys. That scene alone, dude. Dave, can you imagine designing that scene? They destroyed.
You better hope that guy
bar,
knows how to throw that beer bottle, because he misses that TV.
There were like two different shots, and one of them was a very long one that moved through the whole fight and came out at the end and stuff. I just can't imagine. I know they're in this rural area; they can probably do whatever they want with these places, but just the balls to design something that's going to have that much of an effect on your set.
I've had a study kick the camera before while I was holding it, so it'd be a case of like, here, you hold the Ari, I'll take the black magic for this.
Honestly, I mean, really, and not to mention that they shot this on film, right? So all of this was happening. This crazy controlled chaos, this madness was happening with so much intention that they shot it on film, which of course gave it this lovely quality. But
it also makes that color palette. It also makes that color palette they achieved even more impressive. So, because I know they can digitally time
that like
stuff,
burnt out brown and yellow, it lent itself so
brown,
well
yellow,
to
light green. There really weren't that many colors.
Yeah.
but they were
I
all
kept thinking
they all
it was
were
gonna-
clear.
I kept thinking too that it was gonna. They open and close this movie with these just absolutely gorgeous, burnt yellow shots with these rice patties that are out of season. So it's not green, it's yellow.
Yeah.
And it's so pretty.
That
And I
was
kept thinking that
was
the
an
darker
absolute
parts of the movie.
That was a total metaphorical like curtain up at the beginning. Like
Right?
he just
Yeah.
starts off with the kid
And
and a
then it
bug,
just-
and then just yep, and here's your world.
Yep. And it just gets disgusting. And
Was
then
he
it just
farming
turns
at the
into
beginning?
this-
What was
Yeah,
he? Was he doing at the beginning? Was he farming?
The kid?
Yeah, they were having right when he finds out that he had to go. Our main character, Kang-ho. Like, what was? I forget the scene. I remember. I thought it was like farming or something. Do you
I thought he
remember
was just
something about
riding on that car and he was going to the site.
Yeah. So they'd already found the body. This guy was taking him there.
that? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stew on that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, we started in the middle
Yeah,
of the
no,
crime.
he was already a detective. Yeah, you stop looking at your phone at the beginning of the movie.
I wasn't.
You know what? Honestly, you guys, this is good practice. I encourage
Okay.
all Americans, watch foreign films. You got to pay attention. You got to read those
Yeah.
subtitles.
Honestly,
you will
yeah.
rewind. You have got to pay attention. Yeah, it's good practice.
Wait, speaking of paying attention, did one cop grab another cop's cock?
He said,
Yeah.
he said, what are you hard? Let's check.
Let's
And he
check.
just
He was
grabbed his
like-
cock.
There was some very interesting
that was
homoeroticism. And I
kind
don't
of
know
normal.
if that's
Yeah.
cultural or if that's just a part of the whole aspect of sexuality. Obviously, I'm not trying to belittle this at all. This is dealing with something very serious. The rape
Yeah.
was taken seriously, but there's this whole other weird commentary on the woman that he's seeing,
Well, I don't think it was taken
she a
seriously
prostitute?
by the cops. Yes, she was absolutely a prostitute.
and
Okay,
she
yeah, 'cause
eventually
I
becomes
thought the same
his
thing too
wife.
because he kept
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people mistake her for his wife. But no, she was absolutely. a
she's always
prostitute,
there
yeah.
and she's talking about the crimes with her. Not too many people
Right.
I know talk about their work with a prostitute.
I
or
think
at least
she's
not if they're a
also like
detective.
a nurse, like maybe like a
Yeah.
homeopathic kind of thing.
Well, that's
But
what he said.
some
He was
kind
like,
of healer.
it was like because they had sex. It didn't seem very, but it actually kind of seemed like it could have been a marriage, to be honest with you. And then she gives him a flu shot, and then he goes, "I hear everybody at the hospital is trying to get to you." And then they make the joke about taking the clothes on and off. I was like, is the prostitute also the nurse? Is that her?
She kind of.
She's the only person
Yeah.
that can do either thing in this town. Like,
She
it was
does.
very
She
curious.
does home visits. 2 lots.
Home visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was really interesting to me.
That's the happy
the-
ending of
all the
this particular
sexual,
town.
the weird homoerotic tension between them, like the detectives. I thought that was a really unique commentary on just the chaos of everybody's intention. Like we're not even sure who we're trying to have sex with. Which I'm not making a
Yeah.
commentary. I'm not making that comment based on today's standards, where we have a much more fluid understanding. I don't
What
think
happens
that
on
was what he
stakeout
was trying
stays
to
on
say.
stakeout.
The whole section where he's looking for a guy with
Stakeout.
Jesus Christ, they are
You just
sitting
keep
there,
saying steak out after you get your bus.
out Roadhouse.
Guys, don't fall asleep on your stakeout. Oh my god, dude.
The whole section, the whole sequence where he's looking for guys with no pubic hair. So interesting.
That
Yeah.
was so funny.
He's
And a
looking-
boy
this
walks by. They would
old
never get away with that
kids, the
here. A
boy,
boy,
yeah.
He like literally stares at the boy, like yeah.
Yeah.
And he tells the guy that's funny when he tells. I think he's telling a prostitute. He's like,
okay, the prostitute. Yeah.
well, I forget who he's telling, but afterwards he was like, I told the person who runs the place to look out for anybody.
No, when he's telling the chief, it's like,
And they
oh,
just
it
laughed at me.
might be
Yeah,
it might be
yeah.
those monks next door, and the chief's
Well,
just
yeah,
like the
that.
chief's just like, what the fuck?
Well, was
Yeah.
it the chief when he said, I told the person running the sauna, like, hey, if you see anybody
Look
that
out
fits
for
this
hairless
description.
men. Yeah. And they just
And they
laughed
looked
at him.
at him. Yeah, they laughed at him, and he's like, "All right, yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense."
This is just
No,
one of
no
those
hair,
movies
just
that is-
peaches.
it achieves that kind of tone that like I am just searching for as an audience member all the time. I love movies that kind of do this where like it's that perfect blend of you guys are giving me a hard time. If my friends give me a hard time. I don't really watch comedies very much. Like it's not my go-to. My favorite comedy is in
How
drama.
many great?
like,
how many great-
like it's
yeah.
in this kind of movie. It's in these kinds of
The De-
plays.
the
The,
De-
hardest
The
I've laughed in
Departed-
theater is
The
in
Departed's
serious
hilarious.
plays.
The
Departed's hilarious. I just feel like this is just a really. I was shocked at how successful every aspect of this movie was. I knew we were going to be in good hands, but Jeff, he made this when he was 33, dude. It came out when he was 34.
Oh,
He
right,
probably
right.
worked on this from 32 to 33. That
It
just
apparently took a
wow,
year to
I mean,
write
it's
it.
just fucking.
Yeah, yes, David saw it, yeah.
This was
Well, 6
this
months
was
he didn't
his-
write anything. He just did research. This is his second
This was
feature.
his second feature, so he made one before this, which probably is still really good. I'm sure he's got a lot of promise there, but that just blows my fucking mind. He made a lot of shorts before he stepped up to the plate with this one, and it was based on a play that, you know, the play had already been written. It was based on the incident and a book about it or an article about it. So he had some really great source material, and it's a wonderful story. But you know what? The story is not what is so brilliant about this. It's the telling. They fucking absolutely rocked how to direct this and turned it into a singular film. Did you enjoy the suspense sequence when the girl? We're talking about just film acting. We're not talking about enjoying watching people get attacked, but the actual storytelling of when we first saw the killer outside the factory, attack that girl.
Well,
was fucking
that's
terrifying.
the thing. He pulls, like, because he watches so much.
You see it when you see the head pop
he
up
pulls
and then
from
go back down?
he pulls from like various genres. So there's like crime film, horror film, comedy, drama, and this definitely fell into like that one sequence fell into like suspense horror. It reminded me a little bit of Barbarian that we talked about last week, where like he just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that sequence, the suspense. Yeah, so we're talking about this like,
and then he went full slasher for the looking through the trees at the end.
we're talking about like buddy cop stuff for a lot of this, where it's just like the behavior of them trying to figure out what's going on. But the two suspense sequences, because I would consider like the masturbation guy and then the chase to be like, maybe that's not suspense because not necessarily anybody's life is in danger, but like I was holding my breath and I knew that there was time left in the movie, so that it probably wasn't going to be resolved right away. But when you have this guy trying to masturbate on the crime site and you have 3 people watching, and then, you know, that whole like 15 minutes was,
I was just like,
my jaw was a
bust him.
like,
Stop watching him. Just bust him.
Yeah. And also, like, why are you worried if you like just get the jump?
Yeah.
Get the jump on this guy. You have the first step. Go. Yeah.
Dave, I want to ask you, dude, like, we've already kind of touched on it a lot, but the cinematographer's name is Hyung Kim. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And there is something, I don't want this. You talk about people like Hitchcock, Scorsese, Paul Thomas Anderson, Bong Joon Ho, these people who are intense storyboarders, like really design the hell out of stuff. Paul, maybe not quite as much, but you don't want to take anything away from the execution of this cinematography. I felt like I was in such steady hands. Like every single movement was perfect. It was perfect execution. If it was supposed to have a little life, it had the perfect amount of life. If it was supposed to be moving really steadily, there was not a single second that wasn't like zoomed in or zoomed out, pushed in, pushed out, pan, tilted. That wasn't perfectly controlled.
And you could tell also he didn't have quite enough budget to get some of the dolly tracks completely level in some of those sets, and it didn't bother me. It made it it gave it that little bit of an indie feel for me, and I'm like, these guys are, you know, they're making absolute fucking art with what they've got on hand, and that's what it's all about. Dude. Yeah. Like
this,
my favorite shot, and I will stick. This one will stick with me for a while. Is that tunnel?
I was just about to bring that up.
When they're shooting out of the tunnel and the tracks are just light streaks.
So Dave, let's just let listeners know, like, that's the kind of shot that, look, if we're on set and we hadn't planned everything, we might think that would be cool. At some point, let's do that. But that's the kind of shot that comes alive in design. When you're talking about things ahead of time and you're trying to say, like, what's our punctuation on this moment? Yeah. Do we want to cut out? Do we want to go in close? No, well,
I can imagine these guys
50 feet inside.
I imagine these guys standing in that tunnel for about 6 hours waiting for the light to be perfect on those tracks.
Perfect, yeah.
Because it was a traditional silhouette shot, but you had 2 lines of fire where the train track reflected the light perfectly down through the bottom of the shot, and like you just don't
with the
see
raining
that.
too, because that was really raining. They didn't create fake rain. Like they either were meteorologists on site, or this shoot took forever because they were like, okay, you know, like I don't know. I don't know how you storyboard for outdoor shots where you need rainy days and you need not rainy days, and then all that kind of.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. That is the Dave. Well, that is the poster shot for me too. Though
I know when I was in Vietnam,
unbelievable.
I spent some time in Vietnam, and 3 p.m. every day it rained. You could set your watch to it. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow. I was in Florida in August too, but that's just because Ron DeSantis is the governor. I called him
That's
DeSantis.
for calling the devil on our show.
Yeah, dude, fuck that guy.
Anyway, what were we talking about? This movie. Oh yeah.
I just thought that that moment. I just want. I think it's appropriate. I think we should give it to because I think he meant it. This is a movie that is designed to have wider shots with a lot of things happening in frame. He kind of teaches you that language early on. It is very much the main chunk of this movie, the second act, whatever you want to call it, the big middle section, that hour in the middle. It is everywhere. There are multiple, usually 4 of them, the chief, 2 detectives, and that other detective.
Mm-hmm.
They are often in frame together, coming in and out of frame.
Yep.
And I just felt like building to that shot you're talking about, Dave, to finally see them totally silhouetted. These people we've been seeing stuck inside these tight frames, scrunched together, they are now isolated in silhouette. You can't make out their features in the elements, total victims of the rapist's control, which is the rain, because he only attacks in the rain. There was so much as they are no longer in the light. You can't see them. There were just so many things thematically.
Well, actually, it was both because
made sense.
It was like they were standing on the precipice. They had light behind them and a trail to darkness in the front.
God damn it, dude. It's so intelligent.
Yeah.
It's so intelligent, but it still felt emotional. I didn't feel like I was watching, like, ooh, I didn't put on my thinking cap when I saw that shot. It nailed me. It hit me right in the gut. I was like,
I just sat there and went, oh, that's pretty. But
because we're also
but it also absolutely serves purpose.
Had the rapist, it's not him actually. We know it's not him. Had he already gone into the tunnel by that point?
I think so. No, he hadn't.
I think so too. I can't. Okay, he had not. It was when they were holding him down with the gun.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But man, I just couldn't say
they
enough
used it a
about
couple
you
of
guys.
times, so that's a good effect.
So let's wrap up the of what actually happened. So a guy in 2019 confessed, and he had seen the movie before he was found guilty, as was predicted. I still think it's a really cool.
And the guy that confessed is not in the movie.
No, he's none of the characters in the movie. It is. So
they never even got close.
I still think it's cool that the audience gets looked in the eye. So like I got looked in the eye by this guy. His eyes also had the little one eye looked a little different than the other eye effect too, which is kind of a cool way of looking at it. But we all could have been the killer. So it was basically like, but he did to all of the people. He looked me right in the eye, and he did at the end. But yeah, a guy that was found guilty of raping and murdering his sister-in-law, who was 18 years old.
Yeah. His name is Lee Chung-jae. Lee Chung-jae,
yeah. And then in 2019, with the advancement of DNA technology, was linked to something, and he was already in life in prison, I guess, and he confessed to everything. How fucking crazy is that?
He literally said, here's a quote of him saying, he said, I heard that many people had been investigated and wrongfully murdered. I'd like to apologize to all those people.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
He said that there were literally times where he was interviewed by detectives and they would always ask him about other people in the village. He said there was one time where he was wearing a watch from one of the victims and they didn't notice it at all.
Oh.
He was wearing a woman's watch back in the 80s, right? So a woman's watch, it was still pretty clear. It was probably smaller, and it's just an ordinary man, a plain man. That, God damn it, you guys, that last moment with the girl, that fucking destroyed me. Yeah, I was so unsettled. That was really scary.
It's like, he just blends. No wonder they never found him.
Oh,
also,
God.
Well, how wild is it that the masturbator guy, for instance, wore the female, like basically women's underwear?
Well, it's comfortable.
And sure. And then this guy was wearing like the woman's watch, and that like you see the red panties, and they're like, that's the killer, and that's how they identified him. And here's the woman's watch that you're mentioning, John. You're right. But yeah, there were copycat crimes. There were people that were detained, like were in the movie, that killed themselves, like because they basically were tortured. And we know this now. This happens in America like fucking crazy, where there are ways of trying to get confessions out of people regardless of whether or not they did it. It's so fucking stupid. People, God, it's so stupid, but that's what we do. And that happened to these people, and they actually killed themselves.
This is way before Making of a Murderer, though, right? Like that narrative has existed in the pop culture of America and movies and stuff, but
I feel like Making of a Murderer forever. I'm sure forever, like the history of
forever. But like I feel like this was one of the earlier movies, at least in the 21st century, that really showed you the ins and outs of feeding narratives to potential to suspects and trying to get them to literally recite. I mean, that is like old school tactics, and we're seeing it still happen
that they
today.
had tied up, and he was just they basically driven him nuts by beating him.
There was a false confession, actually. There was somebody who served 19 and a half years because he served a week with the cops and they tortured him. And 19 and a half years.
Wow.
How fucking wild is that?
Unreal. Yeah, the subject matter is disgusting, folks, but like this is a really, really compelling film.
Yeah,
I'll also say this. It is scary. Don't get me wrong. Like I could see people who are sensitive to this subject matter not wanting to watch this kind of thing, but there's not a lot of violence, like gore on the screen. There's more intrigue and drama than there is violence. So I think
he also does that thing where
and not get too scared of the violence.
Yeah, he shows you half of, like, he'll show you a tiny bit of the violence, like a close up of a face, and your mind does the rest, which is just worse.
You know what got me? You know what got me? And they had to make this happen, right? Like somebody got paid a lot of money to make the corpse look like this. Classic cinematography that we've seen in Silence of the Lambs, Seven, a bunch of classic serial killer movies and television shows, where the camera is kind of the bottom of the corpse is just in frame, or the top of the corpse is just at the bottom of frame, and we're mostly focused on the detectives or forensics looking down at it. That scene where they find the last girl who was, and then just for just to really turn your stomach, he pans down at the very end and just shows you the entire corpse for like 1 second, and then he just cuts to the next. And it just, God, it bothered me so much.
Yeah, that one got me. You're talking about, I mean, her legs were like tied up above her and stuff. Yeah, that one definitely. And also just the weird voyeurism of everybody standing around. There was a camera person filming basically like everything inside, I don't want to say it on the podcast, but like, because they didn't have police tape, they didn't have fucking caution tape, so these media crews were on the they were like they were 5 feet away from these bodies, like filming inside
that
them.
Was another,
it was disgusting.
Dude, the themes are everywhere. That was another wonderful comment that he made as the director. One of the last acts that our Detective B, if you will, the more serious one from Seoul, he tries to cover her up because he's just so fucking fed up with the whole fucking thing. The only thing he can really do is try to give her a little bit of dignity. So I thought that just the arc of the way he shot these poor, terrible, victims in these awful scenarios, showing different parts of the body, eventually showing an entire body still on the autopsy table, and then eventually showing an entire body with a bunch of fucking men standing around staring at it in the woods, and the detective trying to cover it up. And that's the last time you see any of the victims at all. I thought that was just,
he also knew her as well. So that was I think that's the girl he put the Band-Aid on.
The girl. It was the girl, right?
Yeah, he put the Band-Aid on, yeah.
Oh,
this is one of the most multi-dimensional
Yeah.
films maybe I've ever seen. Just we've covered so many different elements of I guess humanity, but just so many different things they're all on this film. Oh my God! All right,
watch it. Yeah.
Watch it. Yes.
If we haven't ruined it for you already, you should watch it. And reach out to us with your thoughts and give us other suggestions for movies that we could talk about. That'd be great. Thank you so much, everybody. I think it's honestly, I'm having like it's the IMDb, one of the head pictures. There's a couple. I just sent you one of them, which is like the little girl at the end, that's already just the fact that this little girl's in the woods. It's probably not realism, but it's like, why is this girl in the middle of the field? Why are these people walking on their own? Oh, right. It's the fucking 80s and 90s and early 2000s, whatever. But
humanity never learns.
It's a rural village.
Picture,
it makes sense.
Sometimes during this podcast, I was on IMDb on this movies thing, and I saw the last victim tied up with the legs up above, almost like a animal, like we would tie up an animal, something. And it was just like out with the dirt and people around her and stuff. And I was just like, literally was like gone from the world for a second because it's
Jesus,
this movie. I can't believe a movie I laughed at so much.
Yeah,
did that to me. But anyway, all right, people. Fuck you, John. All right.
For recommending this movie.
That sounds thank you, John, for recommending this movie.
Ruined Marvel just a little bit more.
because I haven't recorded a different audio thing to segue us into our final segment, which is what you've been watching, our recommendations of the week, where we tell you what we've been watching and whether or not we recommend them. Dave's going to put them in the poster regardless of whether we recommend them, because sometimes I say I didn't like something and Dave puts it on the poster anyway. People are like, I loved that.
That's just me being evil.
No, you got to do it. We got to get the people, got to keep them up to date. All right. Dave, we always start with you. What have you been watching? You said you had a big list, but we have two things.
No, I didn't. I don't have that big a list, actually. I watched the new animated cyberpunk anime that's based on the Cyberpunk 2077 game that came out on Netflix this week. It's Cyberpunk Edge Runner. It is probably my favorite thing that I've seen produced off a video game currently, because it is so close to the source material. Like, if you're a fan of the game, you will recognize locations in this anime.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's produced by the company that made the game. So yeah, it's quite a fun little story, done in an anime style. I'm digging it.
Nice.
It's definitely not for kids. Do not put this on with children around. Oh my god, no, don't.
All right, dirty anime. I love it. John.
I watched, we'll talk about Rings of Power when you talk about it, but I watched that. I'm caught up on that. And then I also watched a mid-'80s Sidney Lumet movie called Prince of the City, about a group of like detectives and corruption in New York City in the 70s and 80s. And it's about this main detective who decides to start talking to the feds who are investigating it, and kind of ends up outing tons and tons of really high profile detectives that really didn't have any rules around them. They're kind of doing whatever they want, got involved with a bunch of narcotics and just, kind of that thing. It was very Lumet.
Same thing happened in Queensland and Australia in the 80s and 90s.
You know what?
Chaos, that's not even a joke. That just happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, look, it fucking happened, right? I feel like we're still catching up to corruption in the behind the blue line, which is, there's reasons why it happens. But anyway, it was good. It's very long. It's about 3 hours long. It's on, I think it's on HBO Max right now. It's a haul. But if you're into that kind of thing, it feels kind of like the best of like SVU. It kind of feels like a 3 hour of that. Like, it is kind of a lot of going back and forth between justice, the law side of this, the criminal justice side of this, the detective side of this, a little bit of the actual CD underground and how they relate to it, and the lawyers and the prosecutors who are trying to deal with it. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Dick Wolf watched this. Fucking Ormond. What's his name?
I wouldn't be surprised if Dick Wolf watched this. That's funny.
What's the name of God damn it! He ended up being on SVU. He ended up being the main detective. Jeremy Orbach. Orbach.
You mean,
tell me his name.
Theater and film legend Jerry Orbach?
Thank you, Jerry Orbach.
Yes, from Dirty Dancing and this. Yeah.
This is where he played a detective for the first time, and I'm pretty fucking sure this is what got him the role. Like, it is incredible what he.
Well, he was the original Billy.
Detective.
He was the original Billy Flynn in Chicago, who's a lawyer. So he's already been in the police game before on stage.
Yeah, not a police officer, a lawyer. But thanks for trying.
Is he still in Chicago? Because everyone else is.
Honestly, dude, he's a badass. Jeff, there's one clip in here. I'm just going to tell you because it's so cool. He walks into a prosecutor's office. This is why you got to watch this movie, folks. If nothing else, come at me if you don't like it. He walks into this office and he's like, I'm not talking. He was like, you want me to talk? At least give me something to talk about. He fucking throws the desk over the prosecutor, who, by the way, is the principal from Back to the Future. He fucking throws it over him, and he's like, at least come at me for something real. Knees him in the nuts and like walks out. Like fucking like a real badass.
All right, I would like it. I like it. I'm into it.
Yeah, it's fucking cool. Anyway, long movie. Keep going. What do you got, Jeff? Let's talk about Rings of Power, dude.
I'm gonna save the film I watched at least 2 movies, at least 2.5 movies. I'm gonna save my movie recommendations for when we discuss Great Escape.
Okay.
But you have to listen to that for my recommendations. So let's do TV because I've already told you all of the things that I've watched. I watched all of Under the Banner of Heaven, which is 7-hour-long episodes. That's a lot. Now, I do recommend this. It's Dustin Lance Black, who won an Oscar for Milk, and he wrote J. Edgar, but I think that was Clint Eastwood's fault, not his, or Leo's. Whoa!
Sorry.
Someone doesn't like Clint.
Clint Eastwood did that. Don't you dare say that about Clint.
There's the dog. There's the dog going, get off my lawn.
I liked it. So Under the Banner of Heaven. It's on Hulu now, and it's the Latter-day Saints versus, and then the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints kind of come into play. And this is set in the 70s and 80s. It's 70s, 80s. So I watched Be Sweet,
So it's like
Keep Sweet.
Mormons and
Pray Don't
diet
Babe.
Mormons.
So it's a murder. It's a murder. It's a very violent murder of a mother and her 15-month-old infant. And there might be a Mormon connection with the fundamentalists who, like, you know, they believe in the prophet. It's a cult, right? But it's like, and then Andrew Garfield's a Mormon, but he's not a fundamentalist. So there's very interesting stuff in that. I think if they had a little more money, maybe they could have expanded it a little more. But I think on the whole, I was really into it. I think the world building was really great. Okay, there's another TV show that he's great. Yeah. He's great because he's also he's like a sweet Mormon who prays before he probably has sex. You know, he's like that kind of character. So like it's great for Andrew Garfield.
Hole in the sheets kind of thing.
I think that's Jewish, but Adelaide Clement.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Adelaide Clements from
both going down for that one.
You know what? I'm not even drinking to that. There's no fucking budge to that. Fuck that crazy ass
from
shit.
Rectify. There's a great cast. There's Sam Worthington's in this. Russell Wyatt's in this. It's a pretty good cast. Okay, anyway, I recommend that Hulu. There's another TV show that I started that I'll talk about next week because I don't know if I'm going to watch a lot this week. Let's do it. Rings of Power, episode 5.
I have not seen that yet.
4 or 5, and then Game of Thrones, the fucking House of the Dragons has been like 5, at least 5 for House of Dragons.
Yeah.
Might have been 6, 5. So
let's say 4 Rings of Power
5.
was 3.
I think they're up to 4 now.
I think it's 4. Yeah.
What?
I think it's 4.
Somebody check.
Right.
Anyway,
they're both good. I'll just say quickly about the Game of Thrones one because I'm sure I'm going to mention it again on the podcast. The sex politics of Westeros is very fascinating. It really, really is. I think it's prescient. You know, it's like a current culture. We're talking about whether or not a woman could be on the throne and be there, and whether it would tear all these people apart. I think it's very interesting.
But would it kill him to cook and eat a few fucking people?
I didn't know that's all the show was going to be.
Yeah, I never thought I'd find myself rooting for incest.
I mean, give me. No, sorry, I did. I was going to buzz you and you buzzed yourself. Give me something because it actually feels like George R. R. Martin was horny and wrote a romance novel.
That's kind of what it sounds like. Every time I hear people talk about this
when
show,
I say like he's horny and wrote it, I know people are like,
just for that image.
I know it's bad, but
I keep seeing the South Park version.
I shouldn't have said the horny part, but that's all the show is about. And Miguel Sapochnik directed the pilot where there were dragons, and dragons are power, and there's houses that are competing with other houses, and then you're back in Westeros. But this is just that. And the actors are doing a fine job.
I haven't seen
that's all it is.
I haven't seen last night's episode, so I don't know if they've moved on from that.
Do you think the dragons are symbols for cock? For fucking
no, the dragons
this is
honestly
all about sex and
I know this is crazy. The dragons don't matter. They don't matter. And this is a show about the House of the Dragons, about how they ruled for thousands of years because they had dragons, and the dragons don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is what you would believe about sexuality, which again is a very prescient issue. But that's
the dragons got Boba Fetted.
Yeah, the dragons got Boba Fetted in House of Dragons. I'm serious. That's what happened. Because they keep saying like, will they like her claim? I don't know about this. I don't know about that. And all you need somebody to say is, I have a fucking dragon. Yeah. Guys, I have a dragon. Why do we care about the pettiness? There's something they took honestly, they took a really big misstep. Not in that storyline, but that should have been one of 3 or 4 storylines. That shouldn't be the whole show. Okay,
I got the feeling not last night's episode because I haven't seen it, but the episode before that, I got the feeling it was almost like we can only afford 2 set pieces this episode. It just felt very contained. It didn't.
We're just inside all the time in these little rooms, and I just
that was their bottleneck episode.
It's a bummer because they try to like tease the veil. They try to tease these places, and anyway, let's talk about Rings of Power. John? What do you think?
I'll just make this last comment. Just like with Obi-Wan, I still have not heard a compelling argument from anybody for why I should watch this series.
The first
no
episode,
one has said
I was like,
anything
I'm in.
really
Okay,
amazing to me about Rings of Power.
I thought the first. Oh no,
Oh,
Rings
I'm
of Power.
loving Rings
Or
of
you mean
Power.
you mean
Excuse
House
me,
of Dragons?
Yeah.
House of Dragons.
House of Dragons,
excuse me.
it had me at the beginning. It's sort
Same.
of wavering a little bit now. But yeah, because I think when you asked me last, I was like, I'd take House of Dragon over Rings of Power. It's the other way around now.
Well, I think one of the best moments
Okay.
is when Daemon goes and takes Dragonstone and Rhaenyra, who's the heir to the throne, but they're trying to protect her to keep her safe because she's the heir. She's the only heir left. She goes, "Fuck this! I'm getting on my dragon. I'm flying over there."
Carjacks a
And she
dragon.
flies a dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is like that's what the show should be. But instead, it's just like people in rooms bickering about who slept with who, and it's like it's a very prescient issue. But it just shouldn't be the whole show. Okay, can we talk about Rings of Power? John, yay or nay?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm an episode behind now, though. I thought there were only. Damn, dude! I thought that there were only
Where
3
is-
or 4
where is that-
maximum.
You know the elf in servitude. You know how there's an elf in servitude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where is he right now?
they just did their escape, and then it didn't work out, and he got pulled back down into the pit.
That's what I've seen
You're
as
an
well.
episode behind.
Okay, yeah,
You're
we're
an
both an
episode
episode
behind.
behind.
A new episode came out on Friday.
God damn it, dude! I watched them on Friday. Anyway, it doesn't work. Anyway, are you still enjoying it though? Because I'm still
They
enjoying
changed
it.
He's not in the pit
They
anymore.
changed the release
elf is not in
time
the pit.
of the episodes. It doesn't drop like at 12 a.m. Friday anymore. It drops at like 5 p.m. Friday now.
Well, guys, I don't want to be the only one. All I'm going to say is I love
pissed, apparently.
I love the show. They're just rushing, and so plot is succumbing to character. And in this past episode, Galadriel said for like the 17th time, like elves and men used to worship each other, and it's like, okay, we you guys. And then the Isildur storyline.
yeah.
I think they're really fucking up the Isildur storyline. I think they're trying to get too much in. And I don't think they have the time, and they're just saying things. They could be open scenes. If you took the names out, they could be open scenes in acting class. Like,
All right, so
it's bumming me out.
that's my only real like big criticism of this show so far is that because I'm enjoying it, there's a lot to praise, and I still think most people are going to be really entertained if they like fantasy, if they like that kind of thing. But it does feel like we were taught how to watch Middle Earth by iconic movies. Like, I don't know if you can escape the fact that we kind of learned how to watch how these people live their lives through a very specific language. And I feel like this is, it's so plot driven that we don't really get to feel what it feels like for them to be in these places for long periods of time.
Ding ding ding
It's
ding
like,
ding
I
ding
totally
ding
agree,
ding ding
dude.
ding 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 ding. That's it.
Yeah.
It's so plot driven. All the there's lines in this episode that was like, you were fired from a job you didn't get, and I worked my whole life to be on this ship, and now what am I? And it's like any TV show could
Wow.
throw that fucking line.
That's a
in,
line from
like,
Sharknado.
It sounds like TV writing. Yeah, no, you're
It's
totally
gonna
right, dude.
happen. It's gonna happen,
Which
and
is,
you'll see.
you know what's fucking crazy, dude? Guys, we all are old enough to remember the 90s and maybe even early 2000s when every now and then
Dude, I'm old enough
a
to not
network
remember the
or an
90s.
Come on, that's true. That's true. Dave's heavy days is the punk rocker. We were old enough to remember when like miniseries series were beginning to almost become possible and something that could really happen. And everybody was starting to say things like, oh, I can't wait for them to adapt this book into like a long, so we can actually see them really stretch their legs and take their time and have it really character driven. And I feel like a lot of these shows are starting to become, they're writing like, I'm not saying this as it doesn't necessarily equal bad writing, but it's writing as though it's kind of like that B movie structure. Let's just give them the right lines to say to get to the next scene. As
That's all
opposed
it
to
is.
let's take our
How do
time
we
and say,
get there?
what would
Which
this
is-
character actually say?
Which is basically season 8 of Game of Thrones.
And 7.
Feels
I'm
like-
I'll add.
yeah,
And
dude.
most of season
Yeah,
7.
yeah.
But yeah,
And
that's
it's like
exactly
nobody
what it
fucking
is.
learned.
How can we
It's
want
really weird, dude.
Isildur? We want Isildur. We want Mithril. We want the dwarfs. We want this as quickly as possible. How do we get these in 10
I mean,
episodes?
I
with as few
admit, I
lines
was
as
hanging
possible?
for the dwarves. I was like, come on, let's get
Yeah.
to the dwarves. And then we did,
All
and
I'll
it was
say
great.
with the dwarves,
And then we didn't see
and
them again.
you're an episode behind. All I'll say
Yeah.
is now Elrond is there, and they don't have anything for him to do. He's just there with the dwarves, and they're trying so hard to give him a purpose, but they didn't. They wrote themselves into a problem they couldn't write themselves out of, and it's too bad. Okay, I can't keep shitting on these shows. We're also this episode's too long, so we
Just
gotta
for
go.
that.
People, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please check our feed. We really will respond to you on the socials. Anything else before we send everybody home, people?
Nope.
South Korea, what up? listen to our podcast, dude.
Take it easy, film fans.